Hey everybody, Poker Dad here. Like to welcome you guys to a new month on the channel here, August 1st. Um, so first I'll just give you a quick recap of how July went. It was bad. It was actually, June was my best month ever. July was easily my worst month ever. Um, and I blamed that a lot on my mental game. My mental game was pretty bad last month, but this month I am looking to make improvements. I have implemented a couple of changes. First of all, to let you know, my bankroll starting this month is $690. A couple of changes I have made. I actually started doing this a few days ago. I'm only playing one table. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm really trying to focus and concentrate on my play. Instead of playing more than one table, I want to really concentrate on each decision as I continue to learn and progress. Um, I have plenty of time later on in my poker career to play more than one table, but right now I really want to focus on playing one table and making the best decisions possible that I can make for each hand. In fact, I came up with a saying for myself. We must play. I must play one hand at a time, and I think that this is great. Especially I want to play some more live poker, and when you're playing live, you're only playing one table. So I want to focus on playing only one table here online as well, and make the best decisions possible. So I may alter what I'm doing with my bankroll, since I'm only playing one table. Uh, but for now, this month, basically my plan is this month I'm going to play NL25 on ACR, and I am back playing on Global as well at NL20. And ACR is my initial first choice just because you know, I can play NL25 there. And Also, I could do some more exploitative stuff over at ACR than I can on Global. But ACR sometimes there are just no tables available, and also considering I'm only playing one table, I want to make sure that I am doing like table selecting is my number one thing I want to do. Make sure that I am sitting to the right of a recreational player. I mean, to the left of a recreational player, and always being at the best possible table. So maybe some days I may start off a session on ACR and then eventually end up on Global if I can't find a good table on ACR for tables to try up on ACR. Anyway, wanted to do a session review for my session tonight. I played a pretty solid A game session here, so I filtered out to all my hands where we saw the turn, um, and I played 2 hours. So let's get started here. Right here, you can see I have a Queen Jack from small blind, and by the way, these are sorted from earliest in my session to the latest in my session, so any order of the session. So anyway, we get a limp here from the button. So I limp through. Oh, the other thing, by the way, I didn't mention that the other change I made is I purchased some ranges, and they are pretty awesome. If you guys are familiar with Adam Jones, Poker Weasel, he sells ranges, and I purchased his ranges, and I think they're really, really great ranges. And I'm really excited to use them. I used them the past 2 nights, and they're really good. I mean, he's just such a smart guy. So his ranges are really good. Anyway, so here we overlimp with the Jack Queen. And of course, I'm going to check out a position here. We have a gut shot. So my plan here is to call a bet. And the button does bet here, so I do decide to call with my gut shot. 8 comes out here, so we still have a gut shot. My plan now at this point is to check fold. I check, and he checks back, so this is great. Now I get to see a free card. A jack comes out, so I decide here to lead with a little more than a half pot bet, and my opponent calls here, and he just has jack 9, so he has 2 pair. I think the lead here is fine. I'd rather lead here than call a bet because although I think what I would have liked to see myself do a little bit different here is throw out a half pot bet instead of a bigger bet. Um, I didn't think he had a king, of course, but what I was hoping for was to get a 9 to call or an 8 to call here. Um, so I should have thrown out a half pot bet instead of a 3/4 pot bet. That's the only difference. That's the only change I would make here in his hand. Oh, I forgot to. Hang on. Okay. Next hand, we have Ace Queen here from Under the Gun. So of course we're definitely going to open this up here, and we get a call from the big blind. Big blind is a recreational player, by the way. Important for you guys to know, because you obviously, as you know, you can't see the HUDs. So here we hit top pair on a paired board, so I'm pretty happy about this. My opponent checks to me, and of course I throw out a c-bet. I decided to just throw out a half-pot c-bet here to get a call, because the board is pretty dominated. I have an ace, and you know, the only problem with this here is with this bet is I am inviting flush draws to stay in with this bet, but you know, I also want to get some calls as well, and it's going to be kind of hard to get some calls with a bigger bet here on a paired board with an ace. So my opponent does call, and here we get a 3. So I'm definitely not happy that a club comes out. Without me having any clubs, obviously increases the chances of my opponent to have clubs here. He checks, and I'm definitely going to bet here again. Just really betting for protection at this point. You know, if he has a flush, he's going to do something like raise me, and I could fold here. But you know, I like to bet, and maybe at this point, you know, just to really see where I'm at more than anything. Because if I check here and then he jams on the river, you know, he could easily bluff me out of this hand. So betting, I believe, is the best play here, still with top pair. He calls me, and a 7 comes out on the board, and he does decide to jam here. So I gave this some good thought, and I said to myself, you know, him jamming here, there's just really no bluffs here on this board for him to be jamming and as a bluff, and I don't see any case where he's doing this with worse than a pair of aces. He could have definitely hit that flush here, and this is something that a lot of recreational players will do, is they will donk out on the river for value. And this is a clear value bet, and he's representing, you know, hands like a flush, or you know, it is a paired board. So he could also have a full house as well. So there's really, I have no reason to call this here. So I let it go. Now the one thing I want to take a look at here on the flop, was this an SPR pot? Let's see, 26.23, because I remember asking myself afterwards, was this an SPR pot? It's a 4 SPR pot, so no, it just wasn't a hand that we needed to get all in by the river. Okay, SPR, by the way, has been my focus for this week, my study focus. I do plan on making an SPR video, hopefully by the end of the week. Okay, here we have 5-5 here in the cutoff. And we get a middle position open, which I call. And here we get, you know, this actually is a really, this is a great flop for us, you know, with him being the pre-flop raiser. He is a recreational player. He checks here, so I decide to throw out a float bet here. Perfectly fine bet. This bet is, you know, perfect for my range here, and you know, I can get a lot of his overcards to fold here, which would be perfectly fine with me because I don't want to see an overcard come out on the turn. And you know, this is a good hand for me to bet and see if I can just take down the pot right now. Unfortunately, he does call, and a 10 of spades comes out. So definitely a card I'm not too thrilled about here. He could easily have a 10 in his range here. And it's quite possible that he is definitely calling with some overcards. But then again, he could also be calling with maybe a hand like pocket nines, which would definitely. Although pocket nines actually probably would have bet here, so maybe he's betting with he could always have a pair of eights or a pair of sixes that he was c betting here. Not many draws that he would have had unless he was betting with unless he was check calling with some like nut backdoor flush draws or something like that. Which then he could have improved with a flush draw here with the spare. With the spare, what are we playing bowling with a spade? But of course we do have a 5 of spades, which actually does help us here. For the time being, it helps us. So anyway, I decided to check back here. I could have definitely thrown out another float bet here, but I think the best bet here was to to check here, and then on the river, um, if he checks, I can bet here and maybe fold out. Especially if a good card comes from me, that's not a low card. I could possibly fold out a pair of eights, a pair of nines, hands like that. So I decide to check, and the nine comes out, and he decides to bet here. And for me, this is now a clear fold. So if he would have checked here, I actually would have thrown out a bet, just trying to fold out any possible pair of eights or pair of nines he had, but or even pair of sixes that were going to beat me. So, but as it happened, he puts out a bet here, and it's a clear fold for me. Could very well that he had nines here and he hit a set right there too. Here we have King Queen offsuit from the middle position, and we open it up. Get a call from the button. So playing out of position, don't love this with King Queen offsuit. I've actually looked at my stats, and King Queen offsuit and suited are just like, I do really bad with these hands for some reason. Anyway, I check here, and my opponent checks back. Queen comes out here, and I throw out a bet, and he folds. So I thought about this hand afterwards, and I think actually the better play here, if I could do this over again, I would actually check this here and see if he'll throw out some kind of a bet that I could call. I think that would have been the better play for me to do here than betting, and just see if we can get him. Especially I have a king of spades. So again, when I see I have something like a king of spades, it makes him, of course, less likely to have spades. And actually, it can induce. I can then possibly. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not going to bluff here anyway on the river because I have queens. I'll let it go check, check. But I just think I should have checked here and then let him throw out a bet that I would have happily called. So I think the bet here actually was not a great bet. I know it's like a delayed C bet, but it's second pair, and I think I'm better off just checking here, and then maybe he'll bet with like a pair of nines or something. Maybe he's got like pocket nines, pocket eights, something like that. Above a pocket fives that he's going to want to throw out a bet. So, I think it would have been a better play just to check here. Here we got 3-3, and we get an open from the button, and I call from the big blind. So here we have a possible backdoor open-ended straight draw. Anyway, I check here, and my opponent bets, and I do call the threes here. I think this, is okay. This was 20. I'm gonna look at this one tomorrow. I just want to see if this is actually something I should have called or I should have folded here. With it being possible third pair here. But the thing is, I'm just not going to have a lot of twos or fours in my range, I guess. Ace 2, Ace 4 suited, Ace 2 suited, I would have in my range. But, Ace 4 suited and Ace 2 suited, I might 3-bet. So I don't have a lot of twos and fours in my range, which could make calling threes actually the correct play here. And of course, I'm out of position, so I'm going to be calling less than I would if I was in position. I'm going to check this out tomorrow. Ace comes out, so I'm definitely happy about this. Now this gives me a gut shot. I check again, and my opponent checks, and a 4 comes out. So I got two options here. I can bet here, and we remember that he did c-bet here on the flop. So, I mean, he could easily be c-betting with a pair of jacks here and then checking when an ace comes out. Now, my check would be pretty standard here on the turn. But when he checks here, we know he doesn't. When he checks back, we know he doesn't have an ace. I could definitely still have an ace here. He could have a pair of jacks. He could have any other kind of pair as well that would have bet on the flop. Um, he could also just have been betting, of course, a dry board. A lot of people do that as well. Um, anyway, so I decided actually to throw out a little bit over a half pot bet here, um, just because I think when I'm doing this, my goal really is to get those middling pocket pairs to fold and maybe even get this jack to fold here. But this bet here, I think I can definitely get, hands like fives through nines to fold here. And that's really my target here, is to get those kind of hands to fold. And that is what happened. So I was very happy with this bet. But again, I got to look back and make sure that I should have called those threes on the flop. Here we have ace 10 suited here from the button. And we get an open from the middle position. So this was one of those spots where it's optional for me to 3-bet this here or to call. So I decided to call here instead of 3-betting because this player is a recreational player and I'm going to have position on him. And if I do get squeezed here, ace 10 is a perfectly fine call still. So that's why I decided actually to call here from the button. Also, there are two regs here in the blinds, so it's less likely that one of these guys are going to call here, and neither one of them are aggressive players. So I felt like this actually was just a better call, and gives me an opportunity to play the recreational player post flop in position. And they both fold. And we have here a backdoor nut flush draw. Pretty dry board. This is a great board for me, being the pre-flop caller. And he does throw out a c-bet. So my plan here, I could have called, but I felt like a raise really here is probably the best bet here. I'm going to raise obviously with sets of 9, sets of 8, sets of 3s, even 9-8 here. But I got to have some bluffs in my range as well. And I think the backdoor nut flush draw, it makes a really good bluff to go along with those value 3-bets I would be throwing out there as well. So I decided to throw out a 3x bet here, and my opponent calls. So again, this guy, he could be c-betting with a lot of different stuff. In fact, his c-bet stat was 83%. So he's just throwing out a ton of c-bets here. So he could have something like potentially a backdoor draw, a backdoor flush draw with overs as well, which is kind of probably the most likely scenario here. Just any kind of overs is what he would do this with here. That he would make that bet. I mean, again, he's c-betting a ton. So anyway, we throw out the raise, and a 9 comes out. So I'm actually really happy to see this 9, because now it pairs the board, and it is, if I was doing something like raising with a set, I've now hit a full house. So this puts me in a really good spot here. And when my opponent checks to me, this is a clear bet. I decide to put out a pretty large bet here, 2/3. I think it's about a 2/3 pot bet, 3/4 pot bet, around there. And my opponent actually calls. So this was definitely very interesting when my opponent calls. If my opponent had 9s, he definitely would have. I think he would have raised me here. So this kind of, this is a very peculiar thing. So I think he must have some kind of pair here, or it's possible that his backdoor flush was hearts that he's calling me with here. So anyway, we hit the ace here, and I am cautious. If he bets here, I'm gonna find a way to fold this, because with the board A being paired, and if he was betting with that backdoor flush draw and then he calls with the flush draw, that means he hit it. And obviously, without me having any hearts, there is definitely a possibility of him having that flush. So he checks here, and to me the only option is just to check back and hope I take it down with my ace, and that is what happened. So pretty happy about this. Pretty happy about this because I liked our bluff here on the flop. I like the bluff here again on the turn, and definitely we were very fortunate to hit this ace. Um, what may have happened here is if he checked here, I would have just checked back and see if I could take it down with ace high. Um, I wouldn't have bluffed the river here with the heart coming out and me not having any hearts, because there's a very good chance that if he did even have one heart, he could bluff me off the hand possibly, or he could have a flush and he could have been slow playing the flush on the river, expecting me to bet and then looking to raise me. So happy how this hand turned out, and we won a nice pot. Here we have pocket nines from the cutoff, and we raise it up, and we get a 3-bet from the small blind, which we call. And here, this flop, I do not love this flop at all. The 3-better is, of course, going to have, his ace queens, his pocket jacks, his ace jack suited. He's going to have ace king suited, possibly lots of different hands like this he's going to have. Definitely don't love the flop, but he checks to me. So when he checks to me here, betting to me is the only option. Definitely going to throw out the float bet here and hope to get a fold. Unfortunately, he does not fold this, so we do go to the turn. And the turn is a 3. So I definitely don't love this 3 here, because, let's say he had like maybe ace jack suited or something like that that's going to check call this here. If I bet, he's definitely going to call again. So betting is just not going to make much sense here for me. He checks, and I opt to just check back here. And now we see a 2 of diamonds. He checks again, and to me, again, the only option here really is to, I think I checked. Yeah, the only option here is to check and just hope to take it down with my nines. Hoping that he's on a hand like ace king is quite possible. Maybe he had ace king suited that he was calling on the turn, which would have been a perfectly fine call. And we take it down. Unfortunately, all these hands, the villains muck the hand, so we don't know what they had. And this is what I love about playing one table is the analysis I'm doing here right now in this review. I'm able to do this analysis while playing one table. You just can't do this kind of thinking when you're playing multiple tables. It's almost impossible. You end up in these situations where you're playing 2 tables and you have action going on both tables, and you just can't give it your full thought. And that's when you don't make, that you don't have the deep thinking like you could do when you play one table. So that's why I really like one table. Anyway. Here we got 7s from the middle position, which we bump up, and we get a call from the big blind. Again, as you can see, most of these flops really just were eh. But, I mean, this is a pretty good flop for me here because I got the jack and the 10. I do have a spade here as well, which is helpful. Opponent checks, so I do decide to throw out the c-bet here. Being in position, 7s would definitely be a hand that I would absolutely c-bet in this spot. And my opponent calls. So this is an interesting spot here. My opponent checks, and I actually throw out a really big bet here. And the reason why I throw out this big bet, and I'm not really sure if this is the right play or not, this might have been too aggressive, is because of the fact that I'm blocking spades, so I know he doesn't have a flush, and he could be scared off by the flush. Also, the queen is so much better card for me than it is for him with me being the pre-flop raiser. I think I could maybe fold a hand like he has if he has a pair of jacks here or a pair of 10s that would have called the flop. Those types of hands are definitely going to fold this here, especially to the larger size bet I throw out. And that's really my target here, is to fold those jacks and fold those 10s with him, with me representing a flush here, blocking a spade, and maybe even the queen comes out, and that's an overpair to the jack or the 10. So that's really my target here, is to fold out that jack and that 10 here, and we are successful. Again, we don't know what he had, of course. Maybe he had nothing, but that was, if I'm going to be asking, I want to ask myself the question of why am I betting? This is why I was betting, to fold out the jack and the 10 there, because or else, my sevens, they may never be good. Again, and now, in that spot on the turn, I want to point out that I'm betting this because I have a spade. If I did not have a spade here, then I'm definitely not betting here. I'm definitely just checking back and hoping to take it to showdown and take it down with my sevens. I'm never betting here, but because I have a seven of spades here, I'm definitely throwing it to bet. It's a weak flush draw. As well, which would be another reason to bet this here. I don't have too many bluffs here, and that's another reason to bet here, is because this is a flush draw, a weak flush draw, and we need to have some bluffs in our range as well, and this definitely does make for a bluff. Here we have ace king offsuit from the cutoff. Raise it up, and we get a call from the big blind. And it's kind of a neutral board here. Doesn't really favor really either one of us. Me a little bit, but he checks, and I definitely elect to check back here. And now he throws it a bet. So he's throwing out a what would be considered a pro bet here. The hands that I want to defend my pro bets with are going to be aces. Now, I know this because I've done all this studying, and I spent a week working on pro bet. I made a video about it, I believe, making a video about pro bets, float bets, and pro defense. And this is the spot where I want to defend against pro bets when I have an ace. So I do decide to defend here, and I think this is a perfectly fine call. A 5 comes out, so really, if my opponent decides to check here, I'm just going to look to check back and see if I could win with ace high. But when my opponent bets such a large bet, this becomes, of course, an easy fold. Here we have 10-8 suited from the middle position, which I open up. And we get a call from the button. And we get a call from the big blind. So we got a multi-way pot here. And it checks around. And the bet comes in and I fold. So this is pretty uneventful. 7-8 suited here. Middle position opens. We flat it here from the cutoff. And I'd say this is a better flop for me than it is for him. We do have a gut shot. My opponent checks. So this is definitely a spot I want to throw out a float bet against him here, especially with the gut shot. And he calls us here. And a 4 comes out. He checks, and I decide to bet again here. So again, the reason I'm betting here is because I know the 4 is just not helpful to him at all. Now it's possible that I was betting and I could have 3 4s here. I still also do have my gut shot as well. So I think that this is a perfectly fine bet. I'm betting half pot. I'm not really risking too much. I'm just trying to get him to fold out. Really, my goal here is to get him to fold out his draws. Obviously I have 8 high, so this is really never going to be good at showdown. So I really want to bet, fold out his draws here is really what my goal is. And, I don't expect, obviously, get the 10 to fold. I don't expect pocket pairs, like pocket 9s, pocket 8s, hands like that. I don't expect to fold here. But I would like to get him to fold out his draws and just take down the hand. It would be really nice with 8 high. But he calls. And the 2 comes out. So I'm actually really happy about this 2 because I think this 2 really helps me out so much here if he was on a draw. He's playing kind of passive here. When he checks to me, again, betting is the only option. I can't check back here. If I'm checking back here, we lose the hand. So the fact that I have clubs here and the draws are spades and diamonds, this is perfect because these are the possible hands that he was calling with were flush draws of diamonds and spades. So because I don't have any diamonds or spades, this actually makes it a better bet here. And I decide to bet 3/4 pot. So, if I had a diamond or if I had a spade here, then I'm definitely just going to concede the hand. I don't think I'm going to. I don't think I'm going to get a fold, because then it's more likely that he was calling with tens or pocket pairs. But because of this, he has so many flush draws in his range that he would have been calling on the especially on the flop here. It's definitely some spade draws, unless he was calling backdoor or diamond draws. So he has so many busted flush draws here. He's a super passive player, so he's not going to bluff me. We know that. He's going to probably give up with those flush draws. So I think 7-8 here, and I was going to make the bet. I was going to actually make the bet a pot size bet, and I decided actually to lower it down to 3/4 pot bet here, just because I figured that would be better sizing than the pot size bet here. And I got the fold. And that was actually the last hand. So I hope you enjoyed this. I really love this session, because as you can see, with this session, I did finish up. I was up about like 12, $13. But my focus this month, I'm not worried about the money this month. I'm worried about playing good, solid, one-table poker. My win rate is really my focus this month. I want to have a really solid win rate after this for this month. And I'm really happy about this session, because as you saw with the hands here, there were no all-in hands. Heck, I don't even think any one of these hands here that I showed you, I had value hands. I don't think I bet for value at all in this whole entire grouping of hands that I showed you. So I was really happy with this session. So let me ask you a question. Did you enjoy this session? Did you enjoy the video? If you did, do me a favor. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. And until next time, PokerDad.